All right, guys, today we're going to talk about how to transplant this gardenia, not the best example of a gardenia, to a pot from another area where we did some drainage work in my yard. The first step you're going to want to do is select the pot size. For this gardenia, we're going to be going with a roughly about a 12-inch wide pot with about 12 inches, 10 inches deep. There's not a whole lot of root system on this gardenia, as you can see. We kind of did a lot of damage to it when we pulled it out. But this pot, along with a good potting soil that drains well and is slightly acidic, will do just fine. The next step you're going to want to do is get some sort of inert media that's not going to break down. You're going to want to do this for drainage, and it'll give somewhere for the roots to go that's going to be a little bit more dry and not quite as, and just provide more oxygen for the soil. In my case, I'm using just some river rock type deal. I have a lot of this at excess in my yard, and this works really well because it obviously does not break down at all. And of course, there's some leaves in there and some wood chips, but this is just not going to do anything to break down. It's just, you're just going to put it in the bottom. So I usually like to do about a 2.5 inch layer of rock in the bottom. That's just going to give you plenty of good quality drainage and good airflow for your plant. The next thing I typically do is I will get just the cheapest, biggest bag of potting soil I can get. I just go to my local big box store and literally ask for the biggest, cheapest bag they have. I usually do a couple amendments to mine to make it a little bit better. And in this case, I'm going to be adding Espoma soil acidifier. It helps turn hydrangeas blue, but it also helps gardenias because they prefer extremely acidic soil. And I'm also going to be adding some of my favorite product ever. It's called Sure Start. It just helps encourage new root growth, and in the case of this gardenia, it's gonna need quite a bit of help. There's not a whole lot of root growth left on it. It did get damaged pretty heavily when we did the excavation of it, unfortunately. Potting soil, I always like to choose one that has quite a bit of organic material kind of chunky in it. Not only is that going to provide more drainage, but it's also going to provide some nutrients for the plant as it's breaking it down. And it just does a really nice job of keeping good soil aerification and plant health up. And as I'm putting my potting soil into the larger pot, I will be incorporating the soil acidifier and the Sure Start into the soil in a smaller container, just so that way I get a very good incorporation. With the soil acidifier, sorry, doing this one-handed. With the soil acidifier, you're gonna wanna don't over acidify it. Just maybe every other pot of soil you're doing, you just mix it in really well. Soil acidifier typically is just sulfur. In most applications you can purchase at big box stores. And you're not going to want to put too terribly much in there because that will make it too acidic, which is really bad. But if you do find that your plant is too acidic, then you can just put some calcium type stuff in there. Eggshells, if you're organic, eggshells work really well. They help break down. Just make sure you crunch them up extremely well, turn them into a powder, and that will bring that soil acidity to a more basic level. But the optimal pH for an azalea, or for a gardenia, azaleas, hydrangeas, stuff like that, is that 5.5 to 6 range, in my opinion. That's where I've had the best luck, and it does really well. Next, pots of soil, I always want to add the Sure Start. That is just a good starter fertilizer, full of mycorrhizal fungi. Just help benefit root growth. And I've actually had new roots show up within about 5 days to a week after fertilizing my plants with this. It does really well when you incorporate it with the soil that you're mixing in. And in my case, I will be doing a light dusting around the root ball as well, just to make sure I get great soil to root contact. Then you're just going to want to mix it in. Keep mixing it in as you're going, so that way you don't get too much of anything just kind of in one area. You don't want any hot spots. Hot spots cause burn causes death of plants. And on camera it looks like there's a lot more of the Sure Start in there than there really is. I've probably only added about half a cup to this potting mixture so far. I will add at most a cup, just because I'm trying to incorporate it into the soil. But typically a half a cup when you're doing a root ball dusting is more than enough. There, that looks a lot better. Once you get your pot about 3 to 4 inches full from the bottom, or from the top, I'm sorry, you're gonna wanna go ahead and kind of lightly pack it down. Don't pack it too tightly. I always just try to get it where it's just kind of level. That's just how I do it. And then you're going to check where your planting depth is going to be. And in my case, my planting depth is going to be roughly about a 1/2 inch to a 1/4 inch below the rim of the pot. And that's going to be ideal, because what that's going to do is when you go to water this plant, it's going to allow some of the water to be able to sit in the pot and actually percolate through the soil. That way you get good even soil moisture. Gotten the soil level to where we want it. We're gonna take a handful of Sure Start and just kind of dust it. It's okay to get it on the soil. It's not gonna hurt it. This is pretty much a no burn formula. It's very hard to burn anything with this. There's not a whole lot of active stuff in it. There's just some very mild fertilizers in there. And we're just trying to make sure we get good root contact with the fertilizer. You probably will not use the entire handful. Just put it back in a bag. And then it's time to plant it. When you decide how you want it in the pot, that's all based off of you. I always look for the best side. I usually tend to put the taller side towards the back, so that way the front side will get equal growth with the sunlight that the pot will be receiving. You just find which way works best for you and which way you find it most aesthetically pleasing. Once you figure out the location in the pot you want your plant to be at, then you're gonna just start gradually adding soil around the plant, making sure you get good soil to root contact on all your existing roots. Make sure though, when you are planting, that you do not go any higher than that original soil level. So in my case, right there, you're not gonna wanna go any higher than basically the base of the trunk. I always call it a trunk flare because it kind of flares out into the initial root system. But that's just how you cause rot and other diseases to be able to enter your plant. And because this is a transplant with very limited roots, it's already gonna be stressed out enough. Let's not stress it out anymore by adding soil over the trunk. And then you're just gonna kind of work it in there. Don't pack it down too much, because you do want that water to be able to get through there when you do water. I'll just try to make sure it's packed down enough to hold the plant in place. And then you, like I said, you're gonna bring it to about a 1/4 inch from the top, and you'll have a happy plant, hopefully. Let's just keep adding soil until we're happy. Make sure you remember, don't cover that stem, trunk, whatever you want to call it. But get all of those little roots covered. It's a fine dance you got to work. And you see how it's starting to kind of want to lean? Straighten it back up, put a little pressure on it, kind of pack it down a little bit more right in that area. You're not going to harm the plant. Just make sure you're getting a good pack down, and you should have a very happy, healthy plant. And if your potting soil is, this is a recommendation of mine. If your potting soil is very moist, like in my case, while it's in the bag, I always give my plants a day, sometimes 2, to kind of dry out a little bit before you water them. Just so that way you're not causing overwatering to your plant. That's the leading killer of plants, is overwatering them, especially gardenias, especially down in the southeast where I'm at. They're pretty hardy plants. It takes a lot to kill them down here. They can handle pretty significant stresses of drought. And for anybody wondering, this is called a pinwheel gardenia. It's not your traditional gardenia. It has a single row of flowers, and they literally form a pinwheel shape. They still have that great smell, but they don't flower near as much as these big guys over here. I have some August Beauty gardenias over here on my fence line. That guy right there, the little one, it got a blight last year and died back to the ground. And I used some Sure Start on it, this stuff. And I did a little bit more soil acidifier. And I actually got it to get some size back to it within about, I'd say about 6 months. It did come back, and it is recovering. It's got a long way to go though to catch up with those other guys. Those other guys are only 2 years old. Gardenias do grow relatively rapidly, especially the large guys like these August Beauties. The pinwheel, it only gets to be, I think it's 4 feet tall at full growth. So obviously it will not be able to live in this pot forever. You could up pot it to a larger pot, and I would say a year or 2, just so that way it can continue to grow and get large. And guys, that is the finished product. It is all planted and happy, and hopefully happy in its new pot. Now you're gonna select the site where you're gonna wanna put it. Gardenias don't like full direct sunlight. They like your morning sun and early afternoon. I'm talking like sun till maybe 11:30. Otherwise they do burn up. They will get too much sun and have a lot of sun. What I've selected for this guy is underneath a Bradford pear, worst tree ever created. I hate it. You can see it's got quite a bit of damage. It does have a creeping fig growing in it. It's kind of just showing up there and it's taken off, but it does provide lots of afternoon shade for this gardenia, and it will do wonderful. Thanks for watching and have a good day, guys.